I'd like to go over what I feel is the number one mistake that parents and coaches of rec youth baseball players make in terms of like player development. And that is not understanding the importance of thrown ball velocity on the game of baseball. There's always a debate to be had about command versus velocity. But there's like a minimum threshold that you need to cross in order to really even be in the conversation. And from what I've observed is that the parents and coaches are not even anywhere near what that threshold would even need to be a minimally viable like pitcher. It's an important premise to be able to accept because the premise is like the foundation in which you build your house on. And if you don't accept that this is the number one factor which is going to determine who is going to be winning or losing this baseball game, then it's going to be very difficult to build the support structures for that foundation. It actually is opposite of what or the values are opposite from what I've observed. When a pitcher opens up or you have a kid who just throws hard naturally, almost always the feedback is negative, unless it's a strike, which it's probably not. The feedback that kid gets immediately is don't do that, basically, in a nutshell. You get the ever classic, just play catch, Johnny. Don't do that. Don't do that. Settle down, settle down. And there's a whole host of reasons for that. Instead, that kid on that pitch or that throw in practice or the game or whatever could have been setting a personal best in thrown ball velocity, which should be celebrated. I know as a ball, but it's the opposite. And the reason for that is because the parents and coaches, sometimes coaches too, are valuing the result over the process. They're valuing the result of did you get this batter out and did we win this game versus the process of developing a pitcher to be what he needs to be competitive, honestly, at any age level. Because we're playing rec ball, there's probably maybe 4 kids on the team that can hit the ball with some damage. And then maybe like 6 or 7 that are still in that developing stage, is still struggle with that. And so you get somebody that on the team, you can stick them at shortstop, pitcher, catcher, center field, whatever. They'll do fine. And the majority of the team is made up of people who would struggle against any velocity. And that's okay because we need to develop those players too. But what this means is that we start to get the wrong priority system for pitchers, which is if you just throw the ball across the plate, you're going to strike out people and you're going to win games. Or at least you'll win a reasonable amount of them. And that's because the vast majority of the team can't hit. Let's put some ages and let's put some speeds to it. So let's go to AAA, Little League. So the minimum viable speed or velocity, because speed is distance over time, the minimal velocity that you would need at the beginning of the season that you should value is 47 miles per hour. That is, after 47, we can start to have that conversation. All right, pull back a little bit so we can command the baseball better. But below that, it's just not going to be competitive if you're able to face a team that was a little bit more skilled. Now, what I find that velocity of the kid that command the baseball, that gets a lot of positive feedback for just playing catch, the players that can put it in play, they're not doing damage with the ball, they're hitting little ground balls to the second baseman or something, is around 40, 41, 42 miles an hour. That would be an example of getting that wrong priority system down where we value that pitcher, and that pitcher needs to be developed too. I'm not saying ignore that. But when, let's say that this pitcher, because of his success, makes the all-star team, and you put this pitcher who's now, end of season, he's throwing 45. he's going to get lit up, and it's not going to be fun. Because as a coach or parent that understands the value of velocity, you cannot bring a kid out there throwing 45 miles an hour in an all-star team, because it's going to be close your eyes, cross your fingers, and just hope for the best. And you're going to get some kids that are going to hit that ball over the fence, and they're going to hit it over, do damage more often than not doing damage, and you're going to get skunked. It's just cannon fodder, unfortunately. So, what do I propose instead? I propose that kid that you get, let's say in AAA, that can throw the ball 49 miles an hour at the beginning of the season, hasn't pitched, and cannot hit the side of a barn, you need to recognize that pitcher is who your league needs. That player is who your league needs. Because you will not be competitive if you don't start to develop that pitcher first. Now, this kind of triggers a next thought process of don't try and teach command first and then velocity second. It's always velocity first. Throw the freaking baseball hard. When you throw the baseball hard, it is a completely different task than throwing it, just lobbing it and just play catch, Johnny. When you start throwing the baseball hard, you need to do certain things to throw it hard. And that kid might be doing these things naturally. One is just moving your body fast. When you move your body fast, it feels different as the athlete. The things that you could do to command the baseball slower don't apply when you are moving your body quickly. When you move your body quickly and put some oomph behind it, suddenly your glove starts to fly open, for example. And that might not be an issue if you're not throwing the ball hard. Because when you throw the ball hard, that thing's going to open with some force, and it affects your release point. It's going to tug at your release point, make it inconsistent. When you need to throw the body or throw the ball hard, you need to disassociate your hips and your shoulders. And that is completely different feel than just not any sort of hip-shoulder disassociation. Some people will call that hip-shoulder separation. And in order to throw the ball, it's like a completely different feel to the whole thing. Release point, just all the way through the movement. And they need to get used to that. There's going to be a rough season. For every pitcher, they're going to endure, a good pitcher, they're going to endure that season where there's going to be more walks than not. And we need, as adults, to develop those pitchers. Now, before I lose this train of thought, when we start encouraging people to throw the baseball as hard as they can, and then start to shore up the things, don't pull your head to the side. Keep your eyes a little bit more level. Keep your glove in line with your chest. As we start to work to refine the command within that structure of moving the body fast, disassociation between shoulders and hips, then we can really shore up the command. But as I was saying, when we start encouraging those things, baseball immediately becomes a dangerous sport on arm health. And we need to be the adults in the room and not allow them to get injured. We need to provide the environment and the structure where we allow them to throw hard and we don't overuse their arms. Because I think there's not an acute understanding at the rec level just how dangerous it is to throw the baseball as hard as you can. I mean, there should be no more than 20 as hard as you can. And 20 shouldn't even be done. If you're throwing a bullpen, which a lot of people that are parents at the youth level don't know the terminology of a bullpen, like 15, 20, 22 pitches, something like this, is that you're saving like maybe 3 or 4 pitches as hard as you can, and then you need a rest day afterwards. So, like in summary of what I've said so far, is that we as adults need to understand the value of thrown ball velocity with pitchers, in other positions too, but pitchers primarily, on the game itself. And that in turn affects everything else. And then number 2 is don't penalize those kids that are throwing hard and they can't command the baseball yet. And then number 3 is provide the environment and the structure, the mentoring to ensure health and safety within that regime. Now, this discussion should go on further because I'm just talking about it from the pitching side of things. But let's flip the equation, because when you form that all-star team and you have that other league that is developed and they have developed arms over a period of time, when you face that first pitcher that can really throw and then in turn command a baseball fairly decently, it's a bloodbath. It's not good. Because here's what I think that most rec coaches do. They do 40, 40, 40 batting practice. And what I mean by 40, 40, 40 is 40 feet away, so right at the bottom of the mound, 40 miles per hour from a 40-year-old. That's me. I'm almost 40. Now, 40, 40, 40 batting practice is very good for AA, even for AAA, because the task that we're asking them to do in the game environment is within reach. 40, 40, 40 batting practice is here. And then what we're asking them to do in the game, which is hit like 46, something like that, at 46 miles an hour at 46 feet. It's within striking distance. So it's within what you would call the zone of proximal development. It's a challenge, but with guidance and mentoring, they can meet that challenge. But I have seen this time and time again. It'll start to happen at AAA, about all-stars level, or majors within a developed league, or certainly within majors at an all-star level, is that 40, 40, 40 batting practice does not do the thing. It's too big of a gap between, look, I'm out of frame, between what they're experiencing in practice and what they need to achieve in the game. Let me talk about the problem of 40, 40, 40. And I've had this discussion trying to impress upon different people, is that yes, it does simulate a quicker reaction time when you move up to the bottom of the mound. And it helps the coach command the baseball, because the coach is going to have a problem commanding the baseball over the 200 pitches or whatever he's throwing. But the time in the strike zone is different. The ball is still passing through the strike zone at 40 miles an hour, or 45 if you're a firm thrower and you have good command as an adult. That's hard to do for a team. You're going to throw your arm out. It won't be good for your own health. So the time in the strike zone is less. So that gives them a wider margin of error. In majors, when we ask them minimum viable, is when we ask them to hit a 60 mile an hour fastball from 46.5 feet. It breaks. It's too far. The time in the strike zone is a lot less. So hence the margin of error that you can make. What was, at 40, 40, 40, a fair ball that was a triple down the first baseline that you were a little late on is now absurdly foul. It's just a foul ball, non-competitive. It's a bridge too far. So what you need to do is you need to find a way at the majors level. 60 is that mark, that competitive mark. You need to find a way to show these kids velocity. This is mostly done with a pitching machine. And that requires understanding of the limitations of adults. You are not likely, I recognize my limitations. I cannot throw a 60 mile an hour baseball for batting practice at full distance, full little league distance. I mean, if I could do it for like 20 pitches or so. And even then, I'd probably have command issues. And that might be okay. It has a time and place for that. But you're probably, if you're just an average athletic dad, played when you were a kid and want to teach your kids, you probably need to get some pitching machines and show them the game task. If it's to hit a 60 mile an hour baseball when you're in the majors, be 55 if you were in AAA. They need to see it. And those kids that are good, just by showing it to them with no further instruction, they will rise to meet that task. The ones that are quick learners. And then the other ones, you'll need to build up to that point. So this is a discussion on what I feel is the most important element. All the other things about baseball, base running, making plays, turning double plays, how cuts and relays work, especially as we get into like double cuts and, plays at the plate, the first baseman being the cutoff and all that. All that is important. But this is more important. By a wide margin. This is the single most important thing that you can do. Get your kids throwing hard, then refine for strikes and keep them safe, and then practice against that higher velocity. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Till next time.